Ryan Blaney's seemingly hard-earned victory at Darlington Raceway suddenly turned into despair. And it all began with a late race caution involving two drivers who were not even competing for position. The resulting ripple effect did more than simply change the results. It also sparked controversy, misunderstanding, and a great deal of aggravation along pit road. So who was in the wrong, and is the backlash justified? And even more important, was the caution deliberate? The crucial late race caution dramatically changed the outcome of the race, yet it featured two cars that were not even competing for position. An unexpected yellow was issued only moments after Ryan Blaney took the race lead with only a few laps remaining at Darlington. Kyle Larson, who was over 160 laps down, spun exiting turn 2 and hit the inside wall. Denny Hamlin moved from third to first and won the race after pit stops and an overtime restart, while Blaney slipped back to fifth. But what exactly happened behind the race leaders to produce the race-altering yellow? In-car cameras reveal a direct link between Blaney's passing of Reddick and the subsequent incident. As Blaney muscled by Tyler Reddick, Reddick slipped up the track and crashed into the outside wall at the exit of turn 2. Larson, who had just passed Bubba Wallace, who was one lap behind, noticed Reddick in the wall and slowed drastically. Wallace, unable to see beyond Larson's number 5 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet, failed to react in time and collided with him, sending Larson spinning. Wallace expressed dismay on the radio. "Brother, it was not that big of a checkup. I didn't want that." Video shows that Wallace had tucked in directly behind Larson right before the HMS driver got onto the brakes. His team reacted as well, saying the dude just panicked. But why did Larson even pass Wallace? They were not competing for position. Larson appears to have come down pit road for a fresh set of tires with fewer than 10 laps remaining. He was sprinting forward, rapidly getting up to the lead group, when he overtook Wallace. Larson immediately slowed to roughly 20 miles per hour at the exit of the bend after noticing Reddick. "I was checking up, so that's embarrassing," said Larson. Finally, while none of it was deliberate and could simply be referred to as a racing accident, if forced to choose, blame would most certainly fall on Larson. He was being extra careful and attempting to get out of the way to avoid this consequence. But with Wallace approaching closely behind him, he had little time to react as Larson aggressively hit the brakes. Larson likewise had nothing to gain by passing Wallace and had little prospect of improving his position on the track. It's also worth mentioning that Larson would not have been permitted to return to the track last year following his early race crash, in the same location. However, the modified damaged vehicle rules for 2025 allows for extensive garage repairs without dropping out of the race. Larson could surely keep up in his fully repaired car, so that wasn't an issue, but he just happened to be in the worst location at the worst possible time. That wrong place, wrong time dilemma would eventually result in overtime, and Wallace made little attempt to conceal his irritation in the aftermath. Bubba Wallace was upset following the accident. Reddick had just been overtaken by Ryan Blaney, and Wallace had had a difficult day on the track. These drivers were trying to finish. Instead, work overtime. "Brother, that was not that big of a checkup," Wallace yelled over the radio, as reported by CBS Sports' Steven Taranto. "Dude just panicked," his spotter Freddie Kraft said on the radio. "The 45 just got in the fence. He could have run the bottom." I didn't want that," Wallace replied. "God damn it." Tyler Reddick was just ahead of Larson as he passed Bubba Wallace. Larson looked up when Reddick hit the wall. In a huge manner, the 23 had little room to slow down and was effectively shut off and brake checked. Kyle Larson was driving a repaired vehicle. Perhaps he did not believe he could stop in time if necessary. Perhaps the handling was not correct. In any case, it was an unusual circumstance that eventually altered the race. Denny Hamlin immediately entered and exited pit road, taking the lead. He then took control of the overtime restart and ran away with the victory. Ryan Blaney considered the race to be his, until it was not, and, like many admirers, he was left attempting to figure out what had happened. It looked like Ryan Blaney had the Goodyear 400 won during the final laps at Darlington Raceway. Then Kyle Larson spun off, and a late caution altered the outcome for the former NASCAR Cup Series champion, who was looking for his first win of 2025. Denny Hamlin's pit team performed admirably on their final pit stop, giving the number 11 driver the lead and, ultimately, the victory in South Carolina. The Team Penske driver attempted to make sense of the scenario with Larson that lost him the win. The Hendrick Motorsports star appeared to have been turned by Blaney's pal Bubba Wallace, but there was more to the story. Kyle Larson had been, I guess Larson was being told by his spotter, "Hey, Reddick's starting to run high here, you might want to check up a little bit." Then, as Reddick gets in the wall, Larson had been trying to stay out of the way because Larson wrecked earlier in the race. Jeff Gluck stated, via the teardown. He's back out there, he's trying to stay out of the way. They're just trying to learn some things. He sees Reddick go into the fence, and Larson was already starting to run high, so Larson gets on the brakes really hard. Obviously, Bubba didn't realize that Larson was going to check up that hard. Slows down. I mean, he can't slow down in time. He slows down to some degree and plows into Larson, spins him out, which sets up this caution. Now, of course, they come on Blaney's radio and they tell him, well, 23 spun out the 5. Isn't that convenient? Blaney's like, oh, great, right? The teammate thing. We immediately went back and looked at the Max in-car cameras, and it seemed pretty obvious that Larson slowed up a lot. Then, Auto Racing Analytics later put the data, not the SMT data anymore, but what used to be called the SMT data. He posted that, and you can see clearly the brake line that Larson had there to try to check up, and Bubba just ran into the back of him. It was pretty obvious though, to me. There's plenty of... I see all the conspiracy theorists out there, but I honestly don't give any credence to this at all. I think it was a completely honest mistake, coincidence, but it did ruin Blaney's race though, because a pit stop happens again. Denny Hamlin's pit crew has been on it, and they win him the race, because he gets off pit road first. As you can tell, Gluck doesn't think Wallace intended to ruin Blaney's day, and it's simple to understand why. There was no collusion, even if Blaney believed it at the time. Even so, the number 12 team will not reclaim its victory. One thing is certain, things worked out for Denny Hamlin in the end. He went so far as to praise Kyle Larson in his post-race interview. Ryan Blaney will win more races in the future. It just wasn't meant to be at Darlington on Sunday. So, the inquiries begin. Should drivers who are far behind in laps continue compete on the track with those racing for the win? Was this an unusual racing incident? Or a preventable disaster? Or even a setup? And how many races can Ryan Blaney afford to lose before his frustration boils over? Let us know your thoughts below. Was Larson in the wrong? Should Bubba have anticipated it better? And did Hamlin profit just from impeccable timing, or was there more to it? The Darlington drama is far from over.